Okay, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar, which is Selling Your Value. My name is Jenny and I work in client services at BWP Inspire, and I'm going to be your moderator today. And I mean nothing scary by moderator. I will thrill you again with what it is that I do, which in general just means that I work alongside Steve in ensuring that we deliver, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, first-rate webinar. I keep an eye on everything and I look after our question and answer sessions. So I mentioned it before, but we do have a full house again this month, which is beginning to be a regular occurrence, which is right by me. Today's content focuses in on selling and sales, but there's no Del Boys and Rodneys here. This is a first class real advice about how to articulate your value and build trust in your brand with the knock-on effect of increasing sales. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the webinar environment, these are the Zoom settings. If we can just take a closer look at the webinar controls, select audio settings to select and test your speakers, submit the questions via the question and answer button. You can submit those questions at any point throughout the webinar. Only me and Steve can see them at that point. And then what I'll do is I'll collate the questions and answer them at the end of the webinar. Click leave meeting if you need to leave at any time. And I think that's the IT info covered, so let's get cracking. I'd like to introduce today's presenter, who is the wizard behind the curtain, Steve Price, director here at Inspire. Hi, Steve.
Morning, Jenny. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You've had me laughing here. I've had to get myself contained. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe themselves as a Zoom room bouncer before. That's absolutely
There you go.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Jenny. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for giving us your time this afternoon and attending once again one of our webinars, our monthly webinars. So straight off, Jenny's already said it, but I'm going to say it again. I want to encourage you to take notes and submit the questions. You know, we want this to be interactive, where we're getting a good flow of questions coming through, and hopefully we can give you something today to that you can take back to your business, or at least some food for thought to stimulate what you're going to do in the future. So if you're able to do that, if you want to do that, you're definitely going to get most out of the next 45 minutes. Let's get started then and start straight away with a quote here from Zig Ziglar. I'm sure he needs no introduction. Stop selling, start helping. Very simple. And this is really the first sales lesson. If people feel that they're being sold to, then they're not going to buy. If they feel that you're helping them, that might be by adding value or solving a problem that they have, then providing that they're going to perceive the value of what you're offering is greater than the price, then the chances are they're going to buy from you. So look, this webinar today is about learning how to help people to buy without them feeling like they're being sold to. That's what it's all about today. Before I get stuck in, I've got to throw in our usual disclaimer that this information is just for education. It's no substitute for tailored advice, which can be made specific to your particular circumstances. It's general by its nature and it's intended for education only. So here's what I'm going to cover today in this session. We're going to discuss the definition of selling and the most successful type of seller, along with some tips around that. We're also going to demystify the essential ingredients we need to create value. We're going to look at some of the effective sales techniques and learn how to overcome objectives. And then from there, as per usual, then we'll talk a little bit about what your next steps might be and answer any questions that you have. So please do put your questions in whenever you've got them, and we will make some time at the end to do that. And look, I just want to be open and honest about this, or transparent right from the start. I'm no master salesman. I know there are people registered on today's webinar who have a lot more sales experience than I do. Today, I am not trying to convince anybody that I can make great salespeople of you all, but the purpose of the message or the message, what we're trying to get across today, is that in order to be authentic, in order to be successful, the sales message needs to be based around the value. And I think that's where us at Inspire can help. I think we've got a very good idea about how to accentuate your value, how to communicate your value. And if we can put that right at the center of your sales strategy or technique, then I think you can look towards that being able to be improved. So that's what this is about. It's not Steve Price turned accountant into master salesman. It's about how we put value right at the center of that process. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to try and make this interactive. So I want to know how you all feel about selling, and if you've got your smartphone at hand or just your laptop or PC, would you all do me a favor now? This really works better if I can get everybody to participate. Would you go to a website, menti.com? There is nothing suspect or dangerous about going to this website. Go to menti.com and it's going to ask you one question. It's going to ask you, what's the code number of the question you're being asked? And the code number's on screen. It's 19100375. And if you can do that and put that code in, it will then, on the screen that you're presented with, it will ask you one question. And if I just flip my screen over, it should be a screen similar to this. So the question today I'm asking you all before we get started is, what words spring to mind when I say the word sales? What do you think about when you say sales? And I can see we're already getting some answers from you guys. Okay, here they are. So what have we got here? Being talked at, uncomfortable, rejection, pushy, used cars, hard-nosed, cringe, rewarding, pushy, helping customers. Okay, there's a very positive one. Extroverted, emotional. It's a fantastic way to describe it. It certainly can be, especially if it's an expensive purchase. Profit, income. Look at this. Thanks for the feedback here, guys. This is fantastic. So as a collective today, there's a bunch of business owners all brought together to understand where the value in sales can be. This is what we think when we talk about sales. What you see on the screen is what people will be thinking about if they feel that they're being sold to. So this webinar is about how we can help our customers to buy without them feeling like some of those words on the screen, without feeling that you're just selling to them. Okay, so what is selling then? Well, the Oxford Dictionary defines a sale as the exchange of a commodity for money. Okay, so we could just adapt this and call it the exchange of goods or services in return for money. But have a think about this. Will the value of the goods or the services need to be worth more or less than the money your client will part with? Well, that's an easy one. Of course, the value has to be higher. Okay, so who determines that value? Is it you or your customer? It's a rhetoric question. Of course, it's your customer. So we must never forget that the value is perceived by the customer. I think that's worth writing down. I'm going to say it again. The value is perceived by the customer. That's what is oh so important here, their perception of value. So therefore, if we're in sales, our job is to articulate the value to them. Sounds simple, doesn't it? I'll cover this later when I go later on in today's presentation, when I'm talking a little bit more about some sales techniques. At what point is the sale actually made? Lots of sales training courses focus on getting verbal agreements, verbal agreement, or getting that proposal signed, closing the deal, as they call it. How often have you celebrated a sale when a customer has said, yeah, that's okay, but then they've not followed through. It does happen. So in my view, the sale isn't made until the cash is banked. Now that's a very accountant's view for you. As part of our sales coaching program, we'll review your sales processes and ensure that the process extends right through to the point where the cash is banked. So as accountants, we want to see your cash flow grow, not just your sales, because after all, if you're not going to collect your debtors, the sales aren't worth anything to you. Okay, let's focus now on the type of salesperson you need to be. And so we're going to talk about the different types of salespeople. These can be broken down to what I reckon are 4 kinds of sellers. I'll give you a definition for each, and I'll encourage you to note any activities as you know, any actions as they relate to in your business. So let's have a look at the first one then. The first one is the order taker. The order taker sits back and waits for the sales to come to them. So for example, this is a shop on the high street. They sit behind the counter and they wait for you to come to them with your purchase. Okay, so think about your own business. What activities are you doing in your own business that are just order taking? So you're being nothing more than reactive. You're waiting for the sale to come to you. If that suits you, if that's what you're doing at the moment, please note down for yourself that is the actions you're taking. But I would ask you today, in what ways can you be more proactive and instead of just waiting for the sale to come to you? Have a look at number 2, the product pusher. Tries to sell many different products regardless of whether they're going to benefit the customer. They're not there to listen to what the customer actually wants, and they just want to make their sales targets. So do you know what your customers really want? What actions can you take to find out what your customers want? It's worth noting these down as well. We can talk about some examples. We can talk about customer surveys. We can talk about feedbacks from the events that you run, or simply asking how you could be of further help once you've delivered your service or product and you've come to the end of what you might call the sales process. The overseller is willing to say anything in order to get the sale, even if it's not true. The only thing that matters is the sale. It doesn't matter if the sale is not in the best interests of the customer. So I reckon your sales process should work in a way in which you under-promise and over-deliver. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. Think about the stereotype for a used car salesperson. Somebody even put it into our word cloud. Think about Swiss Tony. If you know who I mean, you're probably chuckling, and if you don't know who I mean, look up the Fast Show when you get in tonight. Very, very funny character based all around this stereotype. So what immediately comes to mind when you think of one, when you think of Swiss Tony? Remember the words you noted at the start of this webinar on that word cloud. Remember, our aim is to help our customers and improve their lives with our products or services, not just to sell to them. If people feel they're being sold to, they're going to start to think about you like this. The biggest risk is that you're going to lose your customers' trust and they'll walk away and they're probably never going to come back. You really don't want to be seen as the overseller in your customers' eyes. Of the 4 we're going through, I think this is the worst one. So let's have a look at number 4 then. Number 4 is the problem solver. They identify problems the customer is experiencing and then offer solutions in the form of products or services. In order to be the problem solver, I'd ask you to consider the wants versus the needs of the customer, the benefits versus the features of the product or service, and think about what's in it for me from the customer's point of view. You must also be ready to handle all objections. And for example, I think the most common ones are no time, no money, too busy, I'm not going to use it, etc., etc. And as part of our sales coaching, we delve much deeper into what these topics could be. Let's have a look at wants versus needs. It's important as often what the customer wants and what they need are quite different. And it's important for you to be able to distinguish between these and articulate to the customer what they really need. So let's talk about an example. A person may want a Ferrari, but they've got 3 kids and they have to take those kids regularly to school and sports clubs, etc. What they need is not what they want. Likewise, a customer might want a rusty roof being painted, but what they actually really need is a whole new roof. Benefits versus features. That's another important distinction. We must highlight the benefits of a product or service to the customer, defining the value they'll get from the purchase instead of trying to justify what's involved. Remember, take you back to that original thought, the perceived value has to be greater than the price. So if we go back to the rusty roof example, a paint job, which is just a band-aid, will be much cheaper than a new roof. So we must sell the value of the new roof. So for example, we could talk about a new roof will ensure the customer's roof stops leaking, that will reduce their stress, any damage to the contents, and time spent cleaning up all the water. The problem will be solved long term while reducing their energy costs and potentially increasing the value of their house. So these are all the benefits. The features of the new roof, like what's it made of, and look how aesthetically pleasing all the flashings are, they're not relevant to the customer. Talking about the benefits versus the features. Okay, so that's the 4 types of sellers. In our sales process, put together a list of 10 things that I reckon you must do. Let's go through that list. Be clear on your target market. You don't want to waste time selling to customers who are not a good fit. All makes perfect sense. Number 2, articulate your value in 1 sentence. The value is what matters most to your customers. Can you articulate your value in 1 succinct sentence? Do you have an elevator pitch? This is what seasoned networkers call their 60 seconds. Do you have it? Can you produce it there and then? It's important that you can, because we know that you'll be then living and breathing your value if you're able to do this. It's a very good practice to take. Number 3, commit to what you promise. Never underestimate the value of your follow through. This is going to speed up your sale and build your credibility at the same time. Number 4, we often talk about systems. Why wouldn't we use a sales system and then stick to it? Systems should be clearly broken down into steps for you and your team to follow. It's going to help you increase efficiency and reduce any rework. Number 5, just remember to ask, not tell. Not every customer situation is the same. Don't assume you know what the client needs. Always ask lots of questions to truly understand, and obviously you're going to help to build a connection in this process as well. Number 6, I've already touched on it. Focus on the benefits and not the features. The acronym there is what's in it for me, from the customer's point of view. Remember to articulate what's in it for your customer. Number 7, establish the value before quoting the price. It's a very common mistake to get this wrong. The value to the customer must exceed the price for them to buy. If you're not going to establish the value, when you give them a price, all they can see, all they can understand is cost. They have to understand that price in relation to the value. Number 8, offer them some options. So it's what I would like to call the choice of yeses. The question changes from should I buy, which has a very binary answer, it's either yes or no. It changes from that into which option should I choose, a choice of yeses. Number 9, focus upon the relationship and not the sale. It might take a few interactions. It probably will take a few interactions before a customer is ready to buy. If you're just going to focus on the sale, you're going to come out of the process far too early. And number 10, UPOD. I referred to it earlier on. Under promise and over deliver. See, the point here is that you're going to exceed the customer's expectations. Okay, so I've talked about the importance of articulating value. Okay, that's fine, but what are the components of value? So if you get a rejection or a decline from a customer to buy from you, probably because they don't see the value, and that's probably because you haven't articulated it well enough. There's always money there for what people want to buy. It's about the value, not the money. So these are the 3 ingredients that I reckon determines value. And I don't think any of these are going to be huge surprises to you. Number 1 is quality. Isn't that a given? Well, yes, but how often do we get great quality? How can you get previous customers to articulate the quality that they've experienced from your products or services in the past? Can you offer perhaps a money back guarantee? Number 2, service. Most people expect good service. Do we always get it? Every one of you now has an experience, I am sure, in your life where you have not had good service, and we remember it. So ask yourself some questions. What do you do that's exceptional? What could you do that's exceptional? Once you've answered those 2, how can you best demonstrate this to your prospective customers? Is your service level consistent across all of your business? And if it's not, do some team members need training, or perhaps be shown to a different place within your business if they're not able to come up and maintain this level of consistency? And obviously, I am not the first person to tell you that bad news travels fast. If you're not providing good service, your prospective customers sooner or later will get to hear about it. And the 3rd ingredient is price. So by now you should have asked enough questions to know what problems your customer requires a solution for and the value of that solution. Okay, so with that knowledge, where are you going to position yourself price-wise? And obviously that needs to be set in relation to your competition. If the value you provide is greater than the price, then the chances are a sale you'll be able to make the sale. Make sure your price is connected to that value. If you're at the high end, you can use this to your advantage and go further into promoting your quality. You know, a heart surgeon, you certainly don't want to be at the end of the bottom end of the quality scale there. Building the value in your product or service will build trust in your brand. A trusted and approved brand is far more likely to get more referrals as well. And I think we all know that, don't we? But it's when you put it all together, this is how we push value through in the sales process. Okay, so let's have a look at, I think I've got 4 sales techniques here, which you can really start to implement within your own sales processes. So first of all, the formula for change. Second of all, this idea of looking at wants versus needs. I'll show you a mindset for that called the spin cycle. Ask, don't tell, we talked that on before, and I'll reveal to you what BAMFAM means. So first of all, the formula for change. Now I know the engineers and the mathematicians amongst us are already cheering. Yes, he's brought a formula into it, but most of the audience right now are thinking, oh no, Steve's gone all mathematician on us. Bear with me on this, it's not complicated, and it is, in my opinion, absolute gold dust. So the formula for change is D times V plus F, and that's got to be greater than R. So what on earth does all that mean? Okay, well, R represents, this is the customer's resistance to change. So what we're going to try and do using this formula is build up the variables on the left-hand side of the equation so that we can overcome the resistance, and that's the point at which then we can start to think about the sale being made. Okay, so what are these variables? D represents dissatisfaction with where we are now, dissatisfaction with the status quo. What we need to do is build up the level of dissatisfaction. V represents the vision of a positive future state. This is the picture we will paint for the customer. So we want them to picture, if we're able to change, what could life be like? What could the result be? And F is for the first steps in the direction of the vision. Sorry, press the extra button. So look, this formula can help you immensely, but you've got to understand it, and you've got to understand it instinctively. The formula makes it clear why change often doesn't happen. Without dissatisfaction right now, or without the vision for the future, or without the ability to take some simple steps in the right direction, there will be no change. They are the three catalysts for change. As I've already said, in my opinion, this formula is actually gold dust. We're not even talking about sales here. This isn't concerned with value. We are solely talking about how we get people to change. And of course, that ingredient needs to be right there in any sale. Okay, so that's technique number one. Number two, it's important to remember that clients or customers come to you because they want something. However, as I've already said, this might not be what they actually need. There is likely an underlying problem as to why they want it. You need to help your customers join the dots between what they want and what they need. This will allow you to offer your clients or customers this choice of yeses that I've mentioned. They could purchase what they originally wanted, or they could purchase what they actually need to solve the underlying problem. So how do we join the dots between those wants and needs? Well, this is what the spin cycle is for. It's a concept which I'll demonstrate to you now. So you begin, this is the S, you begin by asking the questions to understand the customer's situation. So for example, why would you like to purchase this product or service? What will you be using it for? What else are you doing? We're assessing the situation. You then identify the problems that your client might be experiencing. So that might be lack of money, lack of time, etc. We then move on to talk about the impact of not being able to solve those problems. And this will lead you to identify what they need to solve their problem. So hopefully that's along the lines of purchasing your product or service, but that is the spin cycle, and it's the order that is really important here. Understand the situation, recognize the underlying problems, take that towards the impact of what those problems are, and then establish what the need is. Okay, number three, ask, don't tell. The next sales technique reminds us to engage with our customers by asking them questions. It's important to begin by asking questions to find out what your customer needs. And you need to do this until you reach the point of engagement where it's the customer asking you the questions instead. So let me try and give you an example on this. Okay, so we start off, and as the salesperson, you ask the first question. Okay, so how are your sales going right now? The customer answers, they've dropped off a bit since COVID hit. Okay, question number two. What have you tried so far to increase your sales? Okay, well, the answer is I've increased my advertising. Next question, are your team members achieving the same sales outcomes as you are? The answer comes back, no. For some reason, I seem to get better results than them. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So what sales training have you provided to your team? The answer, I've shared a few ideas with them, never really done anything formal. The next question, and this is the point of turn, were you aware that we offer a value-based sales coaching service? Now that is our last question, and it is returned with an answer stroke question. So the customer might say, no, what's that all about? What does that involve? And the point at which he's now asking questions is that point of engagement. We have flipped it over. So we will answer his question. Well, we work together to start with by setting a sales action plan where we get clear on what we're wanting to achieve and the steps needed to get there. We've now got engagement, so that's going to generate another question. That's really interesting, but how much does it cost? Then the answer, well, there are a number of options. All right, okay, you've probably sussed me by now. This is my sales process. This is what I'm doing. I'm talking to people about how we can help them with problems in their business. And I will answer that question about how much this might cost. I'm going to answer that at the end of the webinar. But I think the point here is that until the customer is showing some interest on this slide, it's at the line, the point of engagement. And we know that when they start to ask us questions, that's when they become engaged or interested. And that's when we can move through the spin cycle and we can start to proceed with the sale. Okay, so the fourth sales technique is really simple. It's all about the follow-up. So take a look at some of these statistics. They're sourced from the Marketing Donut and they're pretty widely publicised. Most people obtain at least 2 proposals to compare before making a purchase. When only 44% of salespeople follow up on a proposal, if you do follow up, then by default, your chances of getting the job improve instantly. You'll appear proactive and be in a position to negotiate. Obviously, this depends on what your product or service is, but without follow-up, you'll never know why somebody didn't choose your product or service. So let's consider the touch points you have with your prospects that could count as contact. So it might be a meeting or a networking event. It could be your advertising campaign on the radio, seeing you in the paper or social media, being referred, etc., etc. But you need to map what these touch points out. BAMFAM, incidentally, stands for book a meeting from a meeting. The real key here is it's far easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to sell to a new customer. So if you arrange your follow-up at the same time as the first sale, you've already been granted permission to contact the customer again, and you've got that continuity. BAMFAM, book the meeting from the meeting you're already in, rather than severing that engagement and having to go through it all again. It's a great technique. Okay, let's talk about overcoming objections. It's often part of making a sale and means the prospect isn't convinced of the value of what you're offering. So the most common objections generally are about no time or no money. So at this stage, this is where you can bring this formula for change into play. If your prospect has an objection, drill down into the dissatisfaction, build up the vision, or make those first steps easier. Testimonials, case studies are great as they show others how other people in a similar position to them have benefited from buying your products and services. And then there's something called the AQUA technique, which provides a best practice process for responding to the objections. So I'll talk you through AQUA very quickly. Firstly, you have to acknowledge the way the person is feeling. No point in getting into an argument about it. It's their objection. They're entitled to it. It's their prerogative. Q, question what they mean by the objection. What is it about your solution that you're offering that isn't going to give them what they want? Get into that conversation. And obviously the Q, the questioning, should lead to you, the understanding. Understand their objection, and most importantly, show them that you understand. Paraphrase it back to them so that they can see quite clearly that you have understood them. That's actually key to that, because the next A in AQUA is to answer them. You should only answer them once you've done those first 3 steps. If they offer an objection and straight off the cuff you give them an answer, is that a well-founded answer? Have you been empathetic with them? Do you think you've built up understanding? Have you got that engagement we've talked about? Probably not. So you need to go through these 4 stages: A, Q, U, A. Let's have a quick look at then at what a sales action plan might look like. So a sales action plan is a concise plan. Obviously, it's for your sales department. So when we do these, we begin by setting your budget for the year. We'll break your overall sales budget into key components and set the targets for each quarter. If we're doing a coaching session throughout the year, we then update quarterly targets to reflect your actual results so you can stay on track towards achieving that annual budget. From there, we then set key performance indicators for the year and obviously for each quarter. And then next we'll identify, and this is key to it really, the opportunities available in your business and also the vulnerabilities that you've got to manage or mitigate. So finally, we're going to set sales goals for the year and break these down into the 90-day, what I call micro goals and actions, and then the actions that are needed to achieve those goals. Okay, so that's a very succinct look at what the sales action plan is all about. So if I've managed to engage your thoughts in your own sales process, what might your next steps be? So my aim, as I said from the start, is to help you take what you've learned today and implement some positive change in your business. So what could your next steps be? Well, as I say every month, doing nothing is not an option. Unfortunately, it is the one that most people take, but doing nothing should not be an option. Why? Well, because doing what you have always done is unlikely to give you the same results as you've had in the past. Things keep moving and you move backwards. So you have to commit to doing something. Number 2, make a clear plan. And make it clear enough that you can then articulate it to your own team. Focus on what you can do as opposed to worrying about what is out of your control. Obviously, we've seen a fantastic example of that over the last 18 months or so. We can only get somewhere by focusing on what we can do and what we can control. And number 4, as you know, we are here for you and we can help you if you want through this process. So how might that look? Well, as I've said, the information in the webinar today is general, so there are some ways where we can go forward and give you more specific help on this. So first of all, I've just put a menu of 4 things here, and you can see the prices as well, just to give you a taste of what this might be. So first of all, we can work with you to create this sales action plan. So this plan pulls together the ideas that we have shared today, but it's specific to your business. So it's going to be setting out your targets, your goals and your actions ready for you to implement. Then beyond that sales action plan, we can go into coaching as well. And of course, this could be for you, it could be for your team, or it could be for both. So this way, we're going to help you stay accountable and ensure the actions in the plan become the reality. And that, you know, some of these techniques are committed to memory. But look, that's just the first 2. If you're not quite ready or not inclined to take on a paid service, that's perfectly okay. We can send you the complimentary formula for change. I've got a worksheet based around it, and that will help you define the questions that you can ask in your own sales process to build the build the dissatisfaction with the status quo, build their vision of what life will be like if they do buy from you, and also the worksheet then goes on to help you, define the choice of yeses that you might have, the sales options, and you can do this for each of your different products and sales. So that worksheet is something that we can provide for free. As you know, when you leave today's webinar, you'll go via a survey screen, and if you want it, just tick the box, and Jenny is going to get those sent straight out to you. And of course, the final option here, and especially if you're not one of our clients here today, we're open for complimentary meetings. We can talk about your specific needs in more detail if I've given you food for thought here today. Right, Jenny, are you still on the line? Have you got any questions for us?
I am, yeah, I certainly have. Right, should we do a video then, Steve? Because I've
Oh yeah, yeah.
my crazy pineapple on my head for this one. Hair down for this one. Yeah, brilliant points in the webinar. I think sometimes when we talk about sales and selling, we all probably think the concepts are a bit rudimentary, don't you? You have a product, you market it, it either sells or it doesn't. So I think sort of striking that balance between letting the product do the talking and sort of slipping into over selling is a bit of a fine one.
Yeah,
I know I definitely yawn when I hear a salesperson using buzzwords and cheese and whatnot. So I definitely sit up and take notice when I feel that actually someone is talking to me like a real person.
Yeah. I
so
know that.
I think we've sort of pretty much shown that being authentic and real and actually really listening to the demographic is pretty essential in getting the sales that count. And I think with the questions sort of like reflect that. We've got from Amanda a couple of other salespeople in the business as well as me, the owner. How can I help them improve their sales results?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's a great question there, Amanda. I would say first and foremost, we will be putting a copy of this today's webinar up on our YouTube channel. I would get them to watch that. I think that's the first thing. If you've taken any sort of value yourself from this today, then you know, they can watch this recording back and learn the sort of techniques that you've been able to see for yourself today. Obviously, my answer can then go to more formalized ideas and actions, such as some sort of sales training for them. But look, what you're talking about there is no different from 90% of other business owners. Business owners themselves tend to just have a better connection with customers. They live or breathe the purpose of the business. We talk about why does your business exist, not just what it does. So the business owners tend to get that and instinctively understand it because it becomes part of their life and so on. And that comes through in the sales process. There's no shortcuts. You can't just say, read this textbook today or read that script tomorrow and we'll make a salesperson of you. You've got to really buy into what the company is. And ultimately, and I'm going to bring this around quite nicely to all the points we were articulating earlier, they've got to understand what the value is that they're selling. The first sale is always to yourself. If you can't convince yourself, you're not going to come across as authentic. Jenny said that word just a few minutes ago. It's important to be authentic. If you can't convince yourself, how can you ever convince somebody else? So it's a long process. It takes buy into the company and what the value is. That can be accelerated slightly by watching this webinar, and then perhaps more formally by taking on some sort of coaching process.
Absolutely. I've obviously don't run my own business and I haven't, but I find that if you believe in something, then you can actually sell it better yourself. So yeah, passing it on to your staff is fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got from Chris, how do we reconcile the Steve Jobs approach of the customer doesn't know what they want until we tell them?
Okay, right. That's a very good one. How can we reconcile it? Steve Jobs, obviously at Apple, everything about what they do is about innovation. So I'm needing to think about this one, aren't I? Everything about what they sell is about innovation. So they sell products that people aspire to. If we didn't know about the iPhone, we wouldn't want one because we don't know it exists, and we'd still want an iPod because he showed that to us a few years earlier. In his game, he needs to sell the idea of where your dreams can go, where your aspirations can go, and then bring in innovation in off the back of that. And if he does that in the right way, which he does, or did, sorry, then you then want what he's got. I've come at this a slightly different angle today, which is wants versus needs. We talked about a rusty roof. It feels a million miles away from the Apple sales machine, but sometimes people want that glossy new thing and want to spend their money on something that they think will be good, but actually their needs need to come first, and they need to prioritize those. If you're in the innovation game, and if your business is similar to Apple's or any aspect of it, then you need to first of all convince them what they want, because you're selling them something which perhaps when they started the first conversation, when they first started the conversation, they didn't even know existed. And it's a wonderful place to be in. We get that a lot through differentiation. Apple have clearly, they redefine their own industry. They're fantastic at differentiating. It's what in Inspire we would always try to be. You know, a customer will come to us and they'll think they want to talk about a VAT return. Why? Because we're accountants. That's what you talk to an accountant about, isn't it? And then we talk to them about, hang on, we're sat here looking at all your business numbers. Surely we can use those to try and help you improve your business. It's an example. It's a small example. It's an example of where we might want to try and teach the customer or demonstrate to the customer what they want before they even know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got this one from Luke. The sales techniques you shared are great, but I'm concerned I won't remember them. What's the best way to learn them?
Oh, that's simple, that one, Jenny. Having gone from something like a 500-word answer, I can answer this one in one word. One word: practice.
Right.
It is, and I suspect you already know that, because we do. It's just you know, it's not an easy process. So practice includes scripting, practice includes role playing, practice includes sharing best practice between members of the team. You know, I reckon we talked earlier about fielding objections. I reckon if you put your minds to it, you can probably work out every single possible objection that could come, because at some point you've already had it. So how do you retort to that? How do you respond? Practice. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have one of our values for Inspire is walk the talk, isn't it? And that comes down all the way down through to everybody. So if everybody sort of is working from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, you're dead right. Yeah, it's a good way to put it, actually.
Alison has just asked very quickly, I'm not sure whether we can do this now or if it's something that I can send across by email, but she's just asked for the spin cycle to be put back on one of the tiles that you featured earlier on. Don't know if it's easy.
I think so. I think I can go here, but I think we can create a PDF of this as well.
Yeah, okay. I can send that across if that's easier.
Oh, there we go.
There it was. It was on the, that was it. Okay, Alison, so
maybe she wants to get a screenshot of it.
Yeah, take a screen grab of that while it's on there. And while Alison does that, I'll just let everybody know also. A big thank you, first of all, for everybody's engagement and questions and comments in the chat. It's been lovely today. Absolutely fantastic. I'll just let you know very quickly about the next webinar that we've got going on for July, which is leadership lessons. That's on Wednesday the 21st. And as always, it's open to absolutely everybody. It is for clients, non-clients, everybody, so tell your friends. And it's going to be covering everything from the roadblocks to becoming kind of an effective leader, to identifying the processes for better leadership. So I'll be making notes for that, so I can boss it at home and be the leader that I am. Wednesday, 21st of July, 11:30.
Right, let me just come back to my, Alison dropped us a message then and said thanks to that, so I know she's captured it, which is
good stuff.
Let me go back to my closing slide. Okay, we've got another quote for you here, so I'll read it out. I'll share this last quote with you. Make a simple plan today. Commit to at least 3 actions you'll take as a result of today's webinar. Write them down. We give you a space on the survey form at the end of this. Give each one of these tasks an owner so that they become accountable to it, and give it a completion date. That way it becomes a SMART objective. You know where we are if you need our support. And I think that pretty much brings us to the end. I think we've just got one last Thank you, slide. So Jenny, thank you for thank you for making me laugh just before I was about to go through all that. It's been brilliant. Thank you for all sparing the time for us, and I hope it's been worth your while. The feedback we're getting is good, so I'm guessing it is. But if you want the worksheet that I talked about, Formula for Change, it's great, it is good. It's yours free of charge. Jenny will get that sent out to you.
Yep.
Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.